All right, so today we're diving into the visuals of Mirror's Edge.
Yeah, what made them so captivating, even years after the game came out?
And we've got a bunch of analyses here, all based on in-game screenshots.
They break down all these different aspects of the game's visual design.
So by the end, you'll really understand why Mirror's Edge still looks so good.
It still stands out even today in a world of, visually impressive games.
Yeah, absolutely.
One thing that really stands out to me from these analyses
Okay.
is the power of minimalism.
Minimalism in a video game.
Yeah, clean lines, geometric shapes,
Mm-hmm.
stark contrast between light and shadow.
I mean, that sounds kind of empty, doesn't it?
Well, that's the thing.
Okay.
One source points out that the lack of clutter actually makes the game more immersive.
Interesting.
You're not distracted by, unnecessary details.
Right.
So your focus is entirely on the movement and flow of parkour.
I see. So it's not just about looking cool.
Right.
It's about guiding the player's attention.
Exactly.
And enhancing that core gameplay experience.
The environment itself becomes like a guide leading you through the challenges.
I like that.
One source even calls it a playground designed for parkour.
Oh, that's cool.
The minimalist aesthetic creates this sense of freedom and possibility, which allows players to really focus on, mastering the movements, navigating the space.
That makes a lot of sense, actually.
It's like giving your brain space to process the thrill of that movement without being overwhelmed by visual noise.
Yeah, like you can actually think
Exactly.
about what you're doing.
And that ties into another major aspect that the sources highlight, which is the use of light and color.
Okay.
Mirror's Edge doesn't just use light to illuminate the scene.
Yeah.
It uses it to guide the player to create mood and even to foreshadow events.
It's true. The way the game uses color is really striking.
Right.
Remember those vibrant pops of red and green?
Yeah.
Against that cool, almost washed out background.
Exactly. One source talks about how subtle green highlights in the metal railings and platforms, they actually suggest a path forward. It's like a visual language that directs the player without being intrusive.
And those red objects?
Yes.
I always felt like they were telling me to pay attention.
Absolutely.
Like something important was going to happen over there.
It's called runner vision in the game.
Right.
It's a crucial gameplay mechanic that helps players navigate those complex levels and anticipate challenges.
Okay, so again, we see that really smart blend of visual design and gameplay functionality.
Yeah, it all works together.
So we've got minimalism,
yes,
decluttering the space, and then light and color working as a guide. What else makes the visuals of Mirror's Edge so impactful?
Well, one thing that several sources emphasize is the game's sense of verticality.
Verticality.
Yeah. Mirror's Edge is constantly drawing your eye upwards, making you aware of the heights and the potential for those leaps of faith.
I remember that feeling of constantly looking up, scanning for the next handhold or ledge.
Yeah.
It was exhilarating and terrifying at the same time.
And that's the point. One analysis describes it as this sense of freedom and risk. You're encouraged to push the limits of what's possible through movement, to take risks, and experience the thrill of navigating those vertical spaces.
One analysis even mentions a specific scene where the level design makes you instinctively want to plan your next move.
Interesting.
Imagining where Faith will leap to next.
It's like the game itself is prompting that feeling of anticipation and excitement.
Yeah, like the world is this giant puzzle that you're trying to solve with your body.
That's a good way to put it.
And the reward isn't just completing the level,
but
experiencing that feeling of weightlessness and freedom as you move through these incredible spaces.
It's a really unique feeling.
So we've talked about minimalism, light color, this emphasis on verticality. It's already painting a pretty vivid picture. But there's one more element I found really interesting.
Oh, and what's that?
This blend of industrial beauty with an almost ethereal, otherworldly atmosphere.
Interesting.
It's a world of harsh concrete structures.
Yeah.
But there's this surprising sense of serenity and beauty woven throughout.
That's one of the things that makes Mirror's Edge so visually striking.
Yeah.
It's this unexpected juxtaposition of elements that you wouldn't normally associate with each other.
Right.
So on the one hand, you have these towering monolithic buildings that create a sense of oppression and control.
It's like being trapped inside a giant machine.
Right. But then you have these moments where the light filters through a window in a particular way, or you catch a glimpse of the sky reflected in a puddle of water. And it creates this unexpected sense of peace and tranquility.
Yeah, and the sources mention the use of water quite a bit.
Water is definitely important.
It seems like it plays a big role in creating that balance between the industrial and the ethereal.
One source describes it as a reminder that nature still exists.
Oh, I like that.
Within this highly structured world,
Yeah.
it adds movement and life to these otherwise rigid, controlled environments.
It's like a breath of fresh air.
Exactly.
In this otherwise sterile world.
And the way water interacts with light, creating those shimmering surfaces and reflections,
Yeah.
it adds another layer of visual interest.
One analysis even points out how the sterile, clean lines of the environment,
Right.
they echo the game's broader themes of control and surveillance.
Interesting.
Yet the way light is used imbues the scene with an ethereal, almost peaceful quality.
It's all about contrast.
So it's not just about aesthetics.
Right.
It's about using the environment to tell a story.
Exactly.
And to communicate deeper themes.
And that's what we'll explore further in the next part of our deep dive. Welcome back.
So before we go any further, I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier.
Okay.
About Mirror's Edge, using visuals to actually guide the player.
Oh yeah, it's true. The game doesn't rely on
Yeah?
traditional tutorials or on-screen prompts.
Right.
It subtly guides you through the environment itself.
I see.
And color plays a huge role in this.
Okay, so let's break that down.
Yeah.
We were talking about those pops of red and green before.
Right.
How do those actually translate into guiding the player?
Well, think about those red objects scattered throughout the environment.
Uh-huh.
Those are key to that runner vision mechanic,
Right.
which basically highlights the optimal path through a level.
Yeah, it's like the game is saying, hey, pay attention.
Exactly.
This is the way to go.
And I remember sometimes entire pathways would be bathed in red light.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not just aesthetically pleasing, it's
Yeah.
a functional element of the gameplay.
Cool.
One source describes it as a visual language that helps players intuitively understand the flow of movement and anticipate upcoming challenges.
So even though the game world is relatively minimalistic,
Right.
those splashes of red really stand out.
Exactly. The minimalism actually enhances the effectiveness of that runner vision.
How so?
Because without all the visual clutter, those red accents become even more impactful,
Yeah, that makes sense.
guiding your eye and keeping you moving forward.
It's a really clever way to blend that visual design and gameplay.
Yeah, it's really well done,
And it's not just about red.
right?
The sources also talked about how green is used to guide the player.
Yeah, think about those green railings and platforms, how they often pop against the cool blues and grays of the city.
Right.
One source points out how the strategic placement of green suggests a path forward,
Okay.
almost like a subtle invitation to explore a particular route.
Like a trail of breadcrumbs leading you through the city.
Exactly. And it's not just about color either.
Okay.
The game uses light and shadow in really interesting ways to create a sense of depth and draw your eye to specific areas.
Oh yeah, I remember those moments.
Yeah.
Where you'd be running through like a dimly lit corridor and suddenly there'd be this shaft of light streaming in from a window, illuminating a specific path forward.
It's almost like the game is whispering this way.
I like that.
And it's not just about guiding the player either.
Okay.
The interplay of light and shadow also creates these moments of unexpected beauty.
Yeah, one source talks about how light is used to imbue the scene with an ethereal, almost peaceful quality.
Right, and interesting because it's such a stark industrial world for the most part.
Yeah.
It's that contrast that makes it so compelling. You know,
Yeah.
you have these harsh, angular environments, but then these moments of softness and tranquility
Yeah.
created by the way light interacts with the space.
And let's not forget the role of water in all of this.
Oh yeah, definitely.
The sources really emphasize how water adds another layer of visual depth and complexity.
Water is crucial to Mirror's Edge's aesthetic.
Yeah.
Think about the way it reflects light, creating those shimmering surfaces that break up the starkness of the concrete and the metal.
And it's not just about looks.
Right.
No,
It's not.
One source mentions how water adds a sense of movement and life
Yeah.
to these otherwise rigid environments.
Exactly. It introduces an element of unpredictability and organic flow into this highly controlled, sterile world.
Okay, so we've talked about how the game uses light and color
Yeah.
and even water to guide the player and create this unique visual experience.
Right.
But there's one aspect we haven't touched on yet
Mm-hmm.
that I think is really crucial to understanding the impact of Mirror's Edge's visuals.
Oh, okay. What's that?
The first-person perspective.
Ah, yes, of course. That's a great point.
Right.
We've been talking about all these visual elements.
Yeah.
But it's important to remember that you're experiencing them through the eyes of Faith,
Exactly.
the main character.
And I think that's a big part of why the visuals are so effective.
Uh-huh.
The first-person perspective puts you right in the middle of the action.
Right, you're not just watching Faith perform these incredible feats of parkour.
Right.
You are Faith.
It's about embodiment.
Exactly.
You're not just observing the world, you're inhabiting it.
And that has a huge impact on how you experience those feelings of height, speed, and freedom.
Totally. Think about those moments when you're running along a narrow ledge.
Yeah.
Hundreds of feet above the ground.
Right.
You can feel your heart pounding in your chest as you look down at that dizzying drop below.
That sense of vertigo is amplified by the first-person perspective.
Yeah.
You're not just seeing it, you're feeling it in your gut.
And the sense of speed is incredible too.
Oh, yeah.
When you're sprinting across rooftops, leaping over obstacles, it feels like you're actually flying through the city.
And again, the first-person perspective makes all the difference.
Totally.
You're seeing the world rush by from Faith's point of view, blurring past as you gain momentum.
Yeah.
It's exhilarating.
It's like the game designers really understood how to use the first-person perspective to create a truly immersive and visceral experience.
Exactly. And it's not just about the thrill of the movement either.
Okay.
The first-person perspective also plays a role in how we connect with Faith as a character.
How so?
And understand her story. We see the world through her eyes, literally.
Well, that's true.
And because the game is so minimalistic,
Right.
there's not a lot of dialogue or exposition.
Yeah.
We learn about Faith through her actions, her interactions with the environment, the way she moves through the world.
Right. It's very subtle.
It's a very subtle and effective form of storytelling.
Yeah.
And it's all made possible by that brilliant use of the first-person perspective.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
Minimalism, light color verticality, the contrast between the industrial and the ethereal, the use of water,
Right.
and now the impact of the first-person perspective.
It's amazing how all of these elements work together.
It is.
To create such a distinct and memorable visual experience.
It really is a testament to the thought and care that went into the game's design.
Absolutely, but there's one more element I think we need to talk about before we wrap up.
Okay.
One that's often overlooked, but absolutely essential to the overall impact of Mirror's Edge's visuals.
Oh, and what's that?
The sound.
Sound, huh? I'll admit, I don't usually think about sound design when I'm analyzing a game's visuals.
It's easy to overlook, but sound plays a huge role in shaping our overall experience.
Okay.
Especially in a game like Mirror's Edge, where the sense of movement and immersion is so crucial.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more about how sound enhances the visuals in Mirror's Edge.
Well, think about the sound of Faith's footsteps as she's running across rooftops.
Okay.
The way those footsteps echo in the vast open spaces
Yeah.
creates this incredible sense of space and verticality.
Yeah, I remember that it wasn't just generic footsteps either. You could tell what surface she was running on.
Exactly.
Concrete, metal, glass, it all sounded different.
It really added to the realism.
Yeah.
The sound design is incredibly detailed and nuanced. And it's not just about realism either. The sound effects are also used to heighten the emotional impact of certain moments.
Like, give me an example.
Think about the sound of the wind rushing past you as you're sprinting at full speed.
Okay.
It creates this exhilarating sense of momentum, like you're actually flying through the city.
Oh yeah, I remember that feeling.
Yeah.
It was almost like the sound was pushing you forward, urging you to go faster.
Exactly. And then there are those moments when the music kicks in,
Right.
adding another layer of intensity and emotion.
The music was amazing.
It was so good.
That pulsing electronic soundtrack perfectly captured the energy and urgency of the game.
One source describes the music as a heartbeat propelling you forward.
Wow.
And it's true, the music often syncs up with Faith's movements,
Yeah.
creating this incredible sense of flow and rhythm.
It's like the sound and visuals are working together
They are.
in perfect harmony to create this completely immersive experience.
Exactly. The sound design isn't just an afterthought.
Boy.
It's an integral part of what makes the visuals of Mirror's Edge so impactful. Totally. It's about creating a world that you don't just see, but also hear and feel.
So after this deep dive, we've gone way beyond just pretty pictures.
Yeah.
We've explored how Mirror's Edge uses minimalism, light color verticality, and even sound to create this visual experience that is both stunning and purposeful.
We've seen how these choices work together to tell a story, to guide the player, and to evoke a very specific emotional response.
And how the first-person perspective puts you right in the heart of the action,
Yeah.
making you feel like you're actually experiencing those incredible feats of parkour.
Absolutely. And on that note, I'd like to leave you with this thought.
Okay.
How do the visuals of Mirror's Edge and games in general impact how we think about the world around us?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
It makes me think about all the games that have stuck with me over the years.
Yeah.
What is it about their visual style that makes them so memorable? How do those visuals make me feel?
And if you haven't experienced Mirror's Edge firsthand, I highly recommend giving it a try. You'll see how powerful visual design can be when it's done right.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep playing, and keep looking for those moments of beauty and wonder in the games you love.